What happened with those? And I think for 80 was what they estimated was.
Are we on the air yet? Yes, we are. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the October 12th meeting of the Chelmsford Planning Board. Thank you for coming out tonight. We are, of course, being televised, as we always are. We are also available on Zoom, but I warn anybody on Zoom that if the internet goes down, that the meeting continues. But we try to keep it up and running. Okay, first order of business, as our tradition now, is to take public input. This would be input on matters that are not before the planning board tonight. This would be general items. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak as part of the initial open session? I don't see anybody waving their arms. Oh, hi, Brian. Have at it.
Brian Latina, Precinct 9 Town Meeting Rep, 15 Jesse Road's my address. There weren't any agendas in the little
Oh, we run out of agendas?
usually there. I'm not sure why, but I'm not sure what's on the agenda.
Okay, well,
in this
I can
case.
give you a quick rundown.
All right. Is 84 Turnpike Road on there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have an
Yes,
extra
it
copy,
is.
Brian, if you want.
Where is it?
You want that?
Yes, it is. Actually.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay, why don't you take that and share it around as best you can. Yeah, it's up quite close to the end.
Okay. I'll leave that one to the
Yeah.
end of the meeting then. My other concern is warehousing, and I believe that's in general. I want to talk in general for a second,
Okay,
if that's okay. I had the opportunity to drive through Harvard and Stowe,
Yep.
and there was an event out in the next community over, and I noticed that they don't have warehouses out there. Littleton looks like they put in about either 500,000 or 1,000,000 square foot warehouse.
I believe they did,
The
yeah.
other communities don't have those.
Yeah.
They don't have granite curbs. They had a very nice flea market in Harvard in the center. And I noticed even at the school across the street, they didn't have all the amenities that we seem to be putting in our town. They kind of looked like Chelmsford did 20 years ago. So I'm looking at it and saying, we're now looking like, I remember Lowell 20 years ago when I went to school. Actually 30 years ago when I went to school up that way. We're turning into a city. And our governor has put forth a concept that we don't have enough housing. And I got to tell you, driving through those backwoods, it was absolutely gorgeous. There's plenty of space out there for housing. why are we letting the State House tell us that Chelmsford needs another 1,400 or almost 1,500 housing units using the MBTA community? Last meeting I was at, where you were in the McCarthy Auditorium, I'm kind of surprised we didn't have this many people there. I guess that's why we have it here for this meeting. But we were talking about, I think it was actually at the school, so it seems like we're jumping all over the place. I walked out with the lady from the Route 3 committee, if you will. I forget the name of the committee that was there. And she's from Brockton, and the other gentleman that spoke with you was from Lowell. And they were talking about the MBTA community. And on the way out, I asked her if our town is considered MBTA because we're part of the Lowell Regional Transit Authority.
Yeah.
She said it's the same thing.
Yep.
It's weird because they don't have the same union. It's weird because when I called them last year, they said they're not part of the MBTA. And I hope we're not. But I don't think that our community should be picking up another 10% of, call it affordable or housing units in the form of what's on Turnpike Road and what's over at Kensington and Littleton Road. You have weird things like sewer capacity, water. We can't water our lawn. There's a sign out here across from St. Mary's that says, I have to water with the watering can? How can I build 1,400 more units if I have to water with the watering can? How can I afford $14 million worth of kids? I figured one or even half a kid per unit if we do that. This is not something we should be doing in our town. Harvard doesn't have it. Stowe doesn't have it. These communities just outside of our range should be the ones that the governor and the State House are targeting, not us. We already put our 10% in. Yeah. So that's my comments until...
And then that's a fair one. Fortunately, that's one that's going to have to go to the governor and the legislature. We don't have a whole lot we can do about it except wring our hands.
Except we send a message into
Yeah, we
them
can send messages.
saying that we are accepting their mandate or statute that we can accept this thing.
Yeah.
I know we didn't accept the same statute that allows an abutter to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals and appeal a decision of the Planning Board or the Zoning Board. Our town attorney told us when we were fighting 104 Turnpike Road that the abutter did not have a right to stand before the ZBA. She paid $500, which is kind of weird. The resident has to pay to stand before the ZBA, but they do. And the only solution there, because we hadn't accepted the mandate or the state statute that allows an abutter to complain about this project that she believes was wrongly put there and approved by the planning board, the only thing that she could do is go to land court, which the lawyer told her would be about $30,000 to $40,000.
Yeah, it's inexpensive.
So either we follow the state statutes or we don't, or you folks complain on our behalf because you're able to work with the governor and change zoning without town meeting. So that's my points. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm afraid I don't have the governor's cell phone number on my cell phone. Wish I did. You got it? Send it over. Thanks.
He'll give it to you.
Excellent.
Jeff Deals too.
I think I can find him. He's his name's up all over town. Okay. Anybody else would like to make a general or a public comment? Seeing nobody, then let's get to it. We have a fair bit tonight. First things up are what we call administrative review items. And the first one up is 15 to 22 Central Square. My understanding is that a fair number of people who are here are interested in that. To the extent that that's the case, I wanted to let you know that this is not a place in which we take public input. This is a request for a determination of applicability of the VCOD. We'll be looking at concept. We won't be looking at finalized plans. However, fear not, there will be plenty of opportunity later on when the plans have hardened up into good engineering plans. There will be plenty of opportunity for public comment at that point. And with that said, hello, Phil.
Good evening.
For the record, my name's Philip Eliopoulos. I'm an attorney here in Chelmsford with law offices at 9 North Road. Just for purposes, I guess, of clarification, we have a quorum tonight. I know we're missing a couple.
We do have a quorum. Mike is not here, Mike Walsh.
Okay.
However, Anita is zoomed in.
Oh, good.
And
All
Eric
right.
is zoomed in.
Awesome. All right, I just got a little,
Yeah.
wanted to make sure. All right, well, thank you. So I'm just here.
Erica doesn't.
No, she doesn't.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're good on that front. So I'm here on behalf of Bobby Moulton, who's behind me here. I found out tonight, like many of us, he's a lifelong resident of Chelmsford, product of the Chelmsford school system, lives here in town. And he's the owner of Black Rhinestone Real Estate LLC, which owns the properties at 15 to 18 Central Square and 19 to 22 Central Square. I'm also joined tonight by our project team. We've got Brian Melissi, our engineer, and Mike Kern is our architect, and you're going to hear from them tonight as well tonight. Thought I'd sort of let people know how I got involved in the project. I basically kind of pushed my way in. I had heard that someone had bought these properties and was looking to redevelop them. I had never met Bob. I didn't know him. But I set up a meeting with him because I wanted to see what his plans were. Fell in love with what he had proposed for the project and pretty much asked him if I could represent him. So haven't really done that before, but I look at what we did for the old Stop and Shop Marshall site, and some of us were on the board then. We worked together, and I think that was a project that, compared to the sort of defunct building that was there, is something that we can kind of be proud of today. It's brought new life back to that property. So when I saw what he had planned, I really wanted to try to support it, and I think that's kind of hopefully why I'm here tonight. The project itself, as you probably know, is located in the Center Village zoning district, and the district itself was created to promote downtown revitalization, not only to aid in revitalization, but preserving and expanding the business district down there. The project that we're looking to kind of go through this first phase with tonight would seek to redevelop the existing buildings that are on that site into mixed use. The first floor, the ground floor, would be commercial retail and commercial restaurant, and the second floor would be 10 residential units. The project itself is also located in the Village Center Overlay District. And I think if you look at that zoning that the town adopted, it really, I think, had a project like this in mind, to try to create that redevelopment and that mixed use. For those that might be watching tonight from home and might not know a little bit about kind of the background that the town's done, I wanted to kind of just talk about a couple of quick studies that the town's performed over the years. Most recently, the 2020 master plan that the town put together recently looked at the Center Village District and looked at one of its goals to transform the area into a lively, mixed-use village district with strong retail, commercial, and housing. And this project would meet that goal. Within the economic development section of the 2020 master plan, the town sought as a goal to focus on the effects of COVID-19 through creating new business opportunities in town, resolving sewer capacity issues, redeveloping aging and vacant properties, utilizing economic development to market the community and attract growth businesses which enhance the town's tax base and create well-paying jobs. This project would meet that goal. The 2020 master plan also laid out as one of its recommendations, again looking at aging buildings, vacant buildings, and looking at the Center Village as a target area for new economic investment. This project would meet that goal. The master plan of 2020 also adopted and reaffirmed a lot of the goals of the 2010 master plan. So anyone who's interested can look at those plans and really look to see the studies that the town has done really throughout the town, but especially as it relates to Center Village. As I mentioned earlier, with the redevelopment of the old Stop and Shop site, the redevelopment of 11 Cushing Place, the redevelopment of the Oddfellows building, the Fisk House, the town's coming along, of doing some of these goals. And I really think this project, in my opinion, would be a transformative project for the center town of our village, and maybe be a project of a lifetime. We may not see a project like this in our generation. So, what are we here tonight for? We're here tonight, hopefully, to obtain a finding of applicability from the planning board. And with that positive finding, the project would be classified as a VCOD project. So with that, let me bring up Brian Melissy. He can walk you through some of the engineering, and then Michael can help us with some of the architecture. We'll take it from there.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Brian Melissy with Haley Ward, here representing the civil section part of the project. We have a site plan, Evan. As Philip said, one of the major portions of the project is the footprints of the building stay the same. Due to that, we don't have an increase in impervious area, which I know the board's always concerned with, as well as the Conservation Commission when the time comes to be in front of them. Most of the development or redevelopment of the sites of the buildings happen on the second floor. They're two-story buildings. The engineering part's a little bit boring, so I'm going to be a little bit quick, and then we'll get to the good stuff, which is Michael and his nice colored plans. Some of the big-ticket items on the site, you guys are well aware of it with some of the development that went out back. We have the brook running right through the site, literally right under the buildings. I think you're going to like some of the amenities that Bobby and Mike have come up with on the architecturals on that. So we will be in front of the Conservation Commission. Their purview obviously is going to be riverfront area. It's going to be water quality, stormwater runoff, things of that nature. Because we don't have any increase in impervious area, our water quantity would stay the same. We actually have a decrease in the amount of impervious area with some of the courtyard area that's going to be developed into some of the entrance into some of the residential units. When the time comes and the plans become a little bit more further along, we will provide water quality elements, hopefully to kind of make the Conservation Commission a little happier with some additional water quality elements that we can kind of trade off for some of this development. So as this board's typically concerned, parking in the center village is always kind of a concern. We did provide a parking table in the upper right-hand corner of our plan. Along with, some of you may remember, probably a couple months ago, you guys endorsed an A&R plan, or approval not required plan, for the little pigtail piece out to the left or bottom left of the plan, which is where the transportation company parks those vans out there now. Mr. Moulton has 23 spaces there that we can stripe to have 23 parking spaces there. There's 5 spaces right behind the development on the other side of Cushing Lane. There's actually more spaces than that now, but in order to create that courtyard area, we're going to reduce the number of parking spaces right there. And also, as part of the acquisition of these properties, there are 19 shared spaces along with the gristmill area. The previous owner and the previous owner of this parcel, as well as the previous owner with a gristmill had come under that agreement quite some time ago, and so there's 19 shared spaces there now. So we have available to us on our property 47 spaces. I did not count any of the street side parking right out in front of the buildings now, or any of those amenities. With that in the parking calc, we would require a special permit. I believe the rules changed a little bit a while ago, where within the Center Village Overlay District, we're allowed a 20% reduction by right, and up to a 50% reduction with a special permit. Mm-hmm. So we are a little over that 20%, but a little under the 50% reduction. So when the time does come, we can provide a little bit more in-depth discussion on the parking, but more than likely we would be trying to garner a special permit for that. Stormwater issues, footprint. This building would be, the project itself would come under the VCOD as a medium-sized multi-use building, which by a unit count by code or by zoning code, would allow 8 units in the center village frontage zone and 12 units in the center village zone. So the way I read that, which I know everybody can kind of read it a little bit different, this project would be allowed up to 20 units. We have 10 residential units, as Philip said, and then the commercial retail space down below. I know I was quick. I meant to be quick, so we can get to the good stuff, but obviously we'll be here if there's any questions. I'll be certainly happy to answer them.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board and those joining us online. My name is Michael Kern. I'm an architect. My firm is Linear Development. My office is in Tingsboro. And not unlike my client Bobby, I am also a former resident of Chelmsford and a proud graduate of the 1988 class of Chelmsford High. So it's good to be back in town and working with an old friend and now client. Like Phil, I was very excited to be engaged in this project. Having grown up here and seen the modifications to the town, and having known this parcel for quite some time, I was very excited to have an opportunity to be part of the team. So when Bobby approached me about this, we started with sort of a blank slate of what we wanted to do here, and settled on a mixed-use building that would include some residential, as the guys had mentioned previously, with the 10 units on the upper floor, the second floor, which is only 2 floors here, matching the existing footprint of the structures that are currently in place there now. And then through some various historical studies at the Chelmsford Historical Association, and then also reviewing some of the previous master plan studies that have been done through the town, we uncovered one concept that showed an opening up of the brook underneath the building as it runs through the culvert. And we really kind of stuck with that and said, boy, that's a great way to transition from the main street, so to speak, into this back area, which is somewhat underutilized at this point in time, where there's a nice open brook back there. There's the beginnings of some pocket park, and we wanted to enhance that so we could have a transition from the main street through, opening up the waterway in between as well. So that's what you see proposed in these conceptual plans at this point in time. And, it's the design's at a malleable state right now. We're obviously in some early stages. We've been working with Brian on the parking and site restrictions and constraints. But certainly, we've got a jump start on what we see as a vision for this site. So at this point in time, we're looking at a couple of retail options, possibly some restaurants that you see in that particular rendering right there on the left and right sides, that could potentially have some outdoor seating and some nice lighting, really engage people into that side of the street and create a vibrant atmosphere as well. The architectural design is sort of a conglomeration of some review of some historic structures in town, and also, some functionality of using that existing footprint as well. So what you see there is picking up some buildings in and around town that I made some notes of, and using those in a little bit more of a modern way that would work with this building, but keeping the streetscape fairly pedestrian friendly. So this is natural materials, there's wood clapboards, there's, nice painted trims and large windows that, creates an engaging environment. So where we've come from at this point in time is to study this model as it works with the site. And we really feel like the concept of allowing some sort of passage from that main street through the building into that park area would not only be good for future residents of this building, the tenants that would be on the lower floor commercial spaces, but also the community as a whole. I think it would really create a nice environment with that brook in the back that certainly can be enhanced to create more of a nice environment in that back space. So again, at this point, fairly conceptual, but we're heading in a direction that we think is taking us to a place that would really enhance that piece of property and the town in general.
Thank you, thank you. Okay. Do you want to wrap it up, and then we'll pass it around and see what the board thinks?
Yeah, I'd love to hear what the board has to say.
Okay. Well, shall we? Who's first?
Well, the one glaring thing I don't see on there,
Yes?
the telephone lines. And,
Yeah, hey, what did happen to the power poles? Are you actually trusting National Grid to take the darn things down?
That's what they call artistic license.
Yes, I gotcha.
Yes, they're not rendered obviously in that drawing, but it would be fabulous if it was cost-effective and there was a way the utility companies could put those underground, but at this point in time, we don't have that in the plan.
Yeah, that's, of course, as you know, that's been something of a sore point in the center of town for at least a
I know,
decade.
at least. When did we start that underground?
Oh, I don't
utility
remember. It
project?
was
Maybe in the
before I was on
early-
this board.
I think it was in the early 2000s,
Yeah,
which is crazy. But we can always hope.
yes. Okay.
I think it looks great. I'm looking at it, I think it looks great. I'm looking at it, thinking, talking about mixed use. Phil, when you were reading it off, it's exactly what we're looking for. Mixed use, maintain the character, promote sustainability. It looks great. I'd like to see more.
Okay.
Thank you.
Deirdre?
I agree. I feel like it seems made to order for the VCOD and for the Center Village District. I mean, I guess one thing I would like, which is way, way, way down the line, is that the buildings look, detailed in such a way that they seem like the historic character of the downtown, and obviously the Historic District will have things to say about that. And I worry about the sewer, but hopefully the select board and the town manager are working on that issue.
We hope so. I think so.
Nancy?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. Is the expectation that this is built on the foundation of the existing buildings, renovating the existing buildings, or built on the footprint of the existing? In other words, are you
Footprint,
taking
right.
those buildings down?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
That's a
yes.
simple
Whether we
question.
can salvage any of the foundation is.
I had the impression those buildings really weren't very stable.
Yeah. No, this is going to be taking those down and building
Okay.
brand-new
All
buildings
right.
there.
So,
I'll make sure the engineer doesn't let me get me in trouble.
I saw my, no. So actually, there's basically three buildings, maybe four, depending on how you look
Yeah.
at it. Two of the buildings are block masonry buildings. Foundations could be somewhat secure. The building to the left, where the CPA was, the wood frame buildings, might be a little bit suspect. But
don't take me
obviously-
wrong, I'm not fretting about it.
Okay, good. Oh, then I'm right.
Yeah, just stop there. I'm not fretting about it. I was just concerned because,
We'll make sure they're
so,
secure.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to get a demolition permit from historical because these are, and
I was planning on
we're
breaking
not
that news
gonna.
to my client
yeah,
tonight, so.
and we're not gonna approve anything unless, the historic approves the facades.
Yep.
Okay, so, yes, you really do have to pay attention to matching facades with something that is prototypical of Chelmsford. Is there any hazardous waste on this site that has to be
Do
dealt
any-
with?
Did you do like a 21?
I know
phase
across the
one?
street we had issues.
Yeah. We didn't do a phase one. Now, I know there was some environmental work done on 11 Cushing, which isn't
Yeah.
too far behind, and that came back, I think, clean. but-
Yeah, and across the street had issues as well,
I
so
think
that's
that-
why I'm asking.
Yeah, I think the gas station was sort of gravitating that direction, if I remember correctly, so sort of the old Page Pharmacy area sort of gravitated that way. I don't know that it gravitated the other way, but I know that there was some, testing on Acton Road, there was testing on Cushing Place, and
Yeah.
those came back okay. So,
All right. I mean, this is certainly the type of construction that the VCOD was written to support.
yeah.
To me, I don't see any question of whether it's applicable. I think it's just a matter of, knowing what kinds of buttons we're going to have that we need to work through with the final plans.
And obviously, we'll have landscaping plans and welcome your input, Nancy. I know you know a lot about trees
Oh,
and
I just,
whatnot.
yeah,
We'll
I
get
go
to that.
crazy about trees that don't work where you put them.
So feel free to provide that
I'm
input
sorry.
before we get deep in
I just do.
landscaping. It's fine.
But yeah, I hate to see landscaping put in that has to be chopped down 8 years
We
later.
want it to survive,
you know?
absolutely.
You want it to be there and work.
Yep.
So, no, I guess that's the end of my rambling.
All righty. Anita, are you out there? You have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. I kind of reiterate what you guys have already said. I think it's a great project for the center of town. There are current businesses there now, correct?
Yes.
And will this demolition be, like, are you tearing everything down all at once, or what's happening to the current businesses
I believe,
during the demo? And
do you want to come to a microphone just so they can hear you at home?
How are you, Anita? So the plan is to do this in phases so that we provide the least disruption to the businesses as possible. Right now, working with Jack owns the Chelmsford gift shop, and we're talking about transitions within the Chelmsford gift shop to go to a smaller location, which that's already set up. And as we're demolishing the wooden structure, we can move some of those clients over to Chelmsford gift shop and accommodate them during that phase construction process. So the idea here is to provide as least disruption as possible, because we understand how these, businesses need to survive during this construction period. But most of them have been communicated to in terms of what the displacement looks like, how long it will be, and what the options are. Does that make sense?
Good.
Yeah.
And my only other question is, do you have any other places you've done this where we could go and kind of take a look at it? See some other types of renovations you've done, whether it be in the center of town or stuff?
You'd have to go deep into my mind to find those kind of things. No, I've never. This is my first. This is an absolute passion project. So that, as
Okay.
Phil said, I've lived here my entire life, and I've driven by this
Yeah.
property a billion times. I reached out to Jack because I wanted to buy the Brook House because I loved it so much, and we developed a 2-year relationship, and that's turned out to be a great friendship. And I look at this as completely a passion project. It's going to take a village.
You got a great team.
Yeah, I have a great team, but as Phil said, Nancy, I heard you're an arborist expert, right? I'm going to need those kind of things. So yeah, it's going to take a village.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Anita. Erica, do you want to pipe up?
No, I think I'm all set. Anita asked the question I was going to ask, and that is how the current businesses that are there are going to be accommodated. And to follow up on that, will there be opportunity for those businesses to have space in the new development once it is completed?
Absolutely.
We can't promise the same rents.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
yeah.
Very good. Now, the nicest part of being chairman is I get the last word.
Oh, yes. I think he's mine. I didn't-
In terms of applicability, this looks to me like it's just right down the center of the VCOD. So I don't see any question about applicability here. We could try to put together a list of things to worry about, but I have a suspicion that they are all already on your worry list, parking, things like that. So with that said, unless anybody else on the board has more to say, I'd be prepared to go ahead and grant, make a determination of applicability.
Make a
A
motion.
motion to approve applicability.
Okay, motion by Tim,
Second?
second by Nancy. Any more comments from anybody? All in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Hi.
Okay, understood. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 5, 5 yes, 1 abstention. And 1 missing. Mike can't be here tonight, he's going to Mullen. I talked to him today.
And he'll be able to, now that this is over, he'll be able to participate in the second.
Right, yeah,
phase.
without any question.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you very much for your time
all right,
tonight. I appreciate it.
and, you know,
We look
get
forward to
us-
working with you.
get us plans as soon as you got them. We'll start going over them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You answered my question about the rent, thank you.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, that worked out fairly well. Okay, the next 2 items on here are Charles Way and Nabnasset Drive. These are matters that, where there's been a fair bit of discussion between the planning board, the attorneys involved, and the select board. And we finally, I think, gotten it to a resolution, and I see the attorney there.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Douglas Hauser for the applicant. We did reach an agreement with the town. The Board of Selectmen have signed the agreement. The clients have signed the agreement. And I believe all we need for you to do is recommend the layout to the selectmen so they can take action next week. And the A&R plan would be endorsed if you so are inclined. And then that will be held in escrow by town council.
Okay, and is that, could we, does everybody here recall the A&R, this discussion that we had?
Charles Way, right?
Yes, this is Charles Way. I'm certainly prepared to do that and hold it in escrow if the rest of the board is so inclined. But that's going to be, that's going to be
part
2
of the
motions here.
agreement, actually.
That's part of the agreement? Okay. In that case, I guess we need a motion here to recommend
The layout.
the layout as
we'll do 'em
described by
One at a
the,
time, then a motion to
and
recommend.
then,
the
well, then
layout.
we'll do a motion for the second piece.
Okay, so I'll give you a motion to recommend the layout.
Okay?
Second?
Second by Nancy. All in favor?
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anita, you okay? 6. Okay, 6 zip. All right,
One down.
that's done. 1 down. The second one,
Motion to accept the
yeah.
approval for the A&R.
yeah, grant
Or
grant
as-
A&R with the usual no determination as to zoning, and with the understanding that this is held in escrow until the transaction is completed.
Perfect.
And I know, Paul.
What you said.
You guys have it under control.
I guess I'll second that,
Okay,
because I'm not going to try and say it again.
all right. We have a motion, a second. In favor? Aye. It's only been a year plus.
Thank you, and Mr. Chairman, thank you for your
1984.
involvement.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
May I ask a professional courtesy? I have one other matter with the Lowell 5 on the
Yes.
site, and that, it's supposed to be pretty straightforward. I would ask if I could be moved on the agenda so I don't have to,
Let me see where that
for
is.
2 hours to,
Oh,
No problem.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that.
the town engineer sent in a letter saying all the issues were
In your
resolved,
packet
Okay.
is a draft decision.
Yeah, we have a draft decision already.
if you could.
I've looked at it. I'm good with it.
I'm good.
Good with it as well.
Move to approve the draft
We
decision.
need to close the hearing first.
Yeah, okay. First, okay, a motion to
the
close.
public hearing.
Okay.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Deidre?
Okay, that's 6 zip. Now we need a,
Deidre was saying
Yeah.
her motion.
go ahead.
That's my train of thought. Motion to accept the draft decision for
Second.
the
Yeah.
bank.
Second.
Okay, motion second, in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. I
Okay.
appreciate you taking out.
Anytime, anytime. Okay, our next piece is also a matter that the Select Board has been dealing with, and it's a very similar situation. Agreement has been reached, and, let's see, this is a request to recommend street acceptance, I believe.
There's 2 agenda items
Okay.
related to Nabnasset. One is a lot release for Lot 5 and 6,
Yeah,
And the second piece is the vote to recommend the layout.
Okay, well, let's, are there any questions on the lot release here?
Can we take them in reverse?
We certainly can, okay. On the street acceptance, I will note, I was at the select board meeting last night. There has been concern expressed that somehow this opens it up to commercial traffic out of Westford. It does not do that, the way it is presented. This is an approval only of the paved portion, which is up to the, that roundabout there, that circle. It does not include the stub roads coming off of that.
Proposed roads.
And which means they cannot be used, while this is zoned, this area is zoned residential, they cannot be used for a residential, for a commercial purpose. I believe I expressed that properly.
My understanding was there's going to be something attached to the deed to
Yeah,
express that.
It's going to be attached to the decision as it's recorded with the town. That's my understanding. So that's the situation there, and I think at this point, I would suggest that somebody recommend the street acceptance, give a motion to that
A
effect.
motion to accept the street.
I'll second that.
Motion second. In favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anita, what's your thought? You're good? Okay. So the
Motion.
street acceptance is done, and that's paves the way for getting all of this to town meeting.
Motion to release lots 5 and 6.
Second.
Motion?
Do we,
Yep.
what was the contingency that we needed to complete in order to release this, Evan?
It was confirmation from the town engineer and Board of Health that everything, 100% of all the planning board requirements were met.
Have we
related-
received that confirmation
We
in
got the
writing?
as-built, they've completed the street acceptance process, all Title V permits have been issued, so I have that in writing.
Good.
Okay,
Nice.
Project looks nice.
yeah,
So you need a
we
motion?
need a motion.
Motion to, oh, she already said it. You already said it.
Second it.
This one says,
We have a motion, we have a second.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I think that takes care of Nabnasset.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, boom, boom. We have an A&R at 242 Billerica Road.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Brian Melissi with Haley Ward. I'm here representing Merle Realty Trust. We are requesting endorsement of an approval not required plan off of Billerica Road. Property is located in the IA zoning district. We are creating one additional lot that meets frontage and area requirements.
Okay, yeah, I can see that, and this is sort of in line with the retention of rights that everybody is concerned with up there.
Question?
Yep.
Brian, is their parking lot on this new space?
There was no encroachment from the nursing home onto this piece whatsoever.
Okay.
Just to clarify, this is an entirely new lot, right? Correct. Yeah, this has nothing to do with
Okay.
zoning freeze.
Okay, all right.
Oh, okay,
this-
so I misunderstood the
Oh,
question.
okay, so this
Yeah.
is, this is.
We had identified this a while ago when we were doing the addition project, and it just,
Okay,
Yeah, this is an opportunity to, yeah, get some value from the land.
good. All right,
Is the idea to connect it, if you don't mind my asking, to the property behind, or is it going to be a separate?
it's going to be a separate lot. There's no plans at this time to connect anything yet.
Got it.
Is there a structure on that lot still?
There's not.
No, it's an empty
Some of
lot.
the board members here may remember we did the addition to the nursing home. There were
Yeah, I
two
remember when you-
dilapidated structures.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Both of
why I
them
was
came
worried
down.
about
So
parking.
it's,
Well, as far as I can tell, this perfectly meets the A&R requirements. There's not much for us to do, but
So a motion to endorse the A&R 242 Billerica Road
With no,
with
determination as the zoning, but we know what the zoning is anyway.
yes.
Okay, we have a
Second?
motion, we have a second. Any discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Now, uh,
I'm going to go get the river neck.
okay, good. Now, I imagine there's some people here interested in the River Neck project. we have an interesting situation having developed there. There are going to be, I believe, some fairly substantial new information presented tonight. It's going to be different enough that I expect everybody's going to want to digest it before we make further comment on it. That being the case, it's my intent to continue the public input portion of it, but we are going to have a presentation on what's going on that I think will kind of explain itself. Okay, are we all set?
Yeah, they're just coming in,
All right.
and Ben from the team is going to share his screen for the PowerPoint.
Okay. Okay, you're on.
All right. Evening. Just a procedural question, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Robert Buckley, Ringman Bronstein, have the development team. Is Member Walsh on?
No, he is not. He is not here tonight, could not make it. He will Mullen this.
Okay,
And he's all prepared to do that.
very good, thank you.
But everybody else is here.
Good,
Or
thank
at
you very
least
much.
And present.
Good.
Anita's on by Zoom, of
Okay.
course.
We'll try to be brief this evening. We've spent the last few months listening very intently to all the comments. The last meeting, I think the chair at the end summarized the major issues. We intend to quickly address those. As I've sort of coyly over the last few months indicated that there are things have been going on in the background that we weren't at liberty to discuss. But I think tonight we'll provide some information that we would hope resolves many, if not all, of the issues. Certainly there are a lot of fine points that will have to be worked out, and some modifications. But without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Mike Cantalupo from the Davis Company to talk to those issues. Mike?
Thanks, Bob. Thank you, members of the board. Again, Mike Cantalupo, I'm the Chief Development Officer with the Davis Companies. First of all, I want to start by thanking you all for giving us the last month or so. I know that the last time we were at this board meeting, there was a desire to move on with the project. But the last month has been critical, I think, to developing some of the proposed solutions. When we were here the last time, again, the chair summarized the issues, and I think what we said is we were going to come back and tell you what we heard and what we can do on kind of an item-by-item basis. And so that's what we're prepared to do. So in the vein of what we heard, and we'll go through these in some detail, but just at a high-level summary, the sidewalks, the last time we were here, we talked about adding sidewalks beyond just the frontage of our River Neck Road property. I think there was something along the line of 1,600 feet of sidewalks. We have since met with the town in the last month and tried to understand the engineering issues that are associated with that. We'll talk a little bit more detail about that in terms of how it may fit in with some of the other solutions. We were asked to examine the size of the building, which we've done. The hours of operation, we are prepared to limit the hours of operation. Bus stops were a consideration for where children were being picked up. The number of loading docks and any truck traffic in terms of how it would be enforced, which direction would it go when it exited the site, and how would it access the site. The caps on the number of traffic trips, particularly associated with trucks, and then how would we monitor those particular number of trips, and we've investigated that. There was the use of last mile distribution. We've committed that this is not a building for somebody that is like an Amazon or a last mile distribution. We're committed to restricting that use. And then the last, I think, word that was advanced by Board Member Walsh was a potential solution along Apollo Drive to provide access to the site. What I'd like to do is actually start with the last item, because I think that's the most significant thing that has taken place. since we met with you last. As Bob alluded to, the last meeting was not the first time Apollo Drive came up as a potential solution. I think it may have actually come up in the very first meeting. And that obviously dates back some significant number of months. We did take that suggestion to heart, even at the first meeting, and over a period of time, we have not been able to convince the existing owner of the property to part with it in some way. So, but we have been continuously working on that, and between the last meeting and now, we've actually secured an agreement with that. So what we have done is that we have the current fire lane and a portion of land that is frontage along River Neck under a letter of intent to purchase that property with the explicit desire to create a direct route from our property across River Neck Road out into Apollo Drive and then provide direct access to Route 129. In order to do that, right now that road is one lane, so it really just accommodates a fire truck. We'd have to acquire the site, expand it, improve it to roadway, conditions, public roadway conditions, and that all of that comes at a fairly significant cost, not only to purchase but also to improve the street. And just by way of orientation for everybody that's here, this is an aerial of the area that we are talking about. So outlined in red is our site, which abuts the highway, and you can see its proximity to River Neck Road. River Neck Road is highlighted, and then Bill Ricka Road. So again, this is under a letter of intent, and so if we are successful, what we would propose to do is to connect River Neck Road through the access drive to the existing Apollo Drive, which is accessible by the public, and that would provide a direct access to Route 129. So we think that as we were thinking about the potential solution, one of the things that we heard from you all and from members of the community is that truck traffic today is an issue on River Neck Road. And so we think this actually may go a long way towards not only solving the needs of this project, but also any existing truck conditions or issues that might exist today. So we're actually quite excited about working through the details of this and maybe offering it as a solution, not only for our project, but also to the town. So now I think what I'd like to do for the rest of the time here, and then we'll take whatever questions. As I mentioned, this does come at a significant cost to the project and to develop this mitigation solution. So there are a number of things that we're prepared to commit to tonight. I'd like to start maybe at the middle of the list. There are some things that are going to require additional review. So the number of loading docks, some of this, by the way, may be reiterating what we've already committed to, but I just want to reemphasize it. So the number of loading docks was a concern. We're prepared to reduce the number of loading docks from 52 that was originally proposed, just go back, to a number of 25. The enforcement of the truck in which directions the trucks would go when they access the site or leave the site, we think is actually solved by Apollo Drive. There's no reason for trucks to go in either direction, because I think trucks are a lot like water. They're going to flow to where the path of least resistance is, and they're coming largely from the highway to get to the site. So we think that would solve the issue. Traffic caps was discussed at the last meeting. We had committed then, and we're further reinforcing that we would limit the number of trips to 80 trips to the property. It's really 40 trucks that would access the site because they would access and leave. So, and we have investigated technology by which we can monitor that truck traffic electronically. That actually can be developed into a feed that the town can access at any time, 24/7, 24 hours, 7 days a week. So that would, mitigate any reporting. If there was ever a concern that there might be a violation, the town could have immediate access to the to the information. And then the last mile distribution use, we've heard consistently from about this project that an Amazon-like use would go to the property. We're committing that we would not going to do that kind of a use and would not do last mile distribution. And we've actually given you language to that extent that confirms that we would not. Now, those are all in the category of items that we can commit to today. The first three are things that we need to evaluate further, and our purpose here tonight, and hopefully you will agree with us, is that we've made enough progress in terms of a potential solution that we'd warrant some more time to actually investigate and fully flesh out some of these other issues. So in particular, the sidewalks, we can't pay for everything. And so I think that if we are able to purchase the property and improve the road, I'm not quite sure what the road would look like, whether that road would have a sidewalk. We can't then go and afford to pay for 1,600 feet of sidewalk along River Neck Road. So that's a trade-off in our mind's eye for the delivery of the solution. Similarly, the size of the building is the financial mechanism by which we're going to actually pay for this. And so that becomes a critical item for us in the calculus in terms of how we execute this. The hours of operation, I think we can do something, certainly. We would propose to limit the hours of operation from midnight to 5. I think that would be a subject of further dialogue as we go along here. But that is something that we can do. But the first two are definitely items they have financial implications to us. And when you make that, balance that equation of delivering the road, some things have to give. And so that's pretty much the extent of our presentation and our proposal to the town for consideration. Again, if you guys didn't give us the last month to work on this, we probably wouldn't have been able to get to this point. So we very much value that, and we'd be happy to take any questions or thoughts in terms of how we proceed here.
Okay. Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Let me run it around. Nancy, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just had a comment on it. I think with this new proposal, we need to go back and seriously rethink some things, and one of them I would think would be an updated traffic study.
I think we agree with you. I think, obviously, with the change in
But
traffic.
we need to see what that looks like.
Sure, the traffic would flow differently, and so we need to do it, absolutely.
Which means
Yeah.
we need to push this forward for a while they do that.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I mean, that's a significant change.
It's a significant change.
I
It changes the
yeah.
whole face of the
Yeah.
project.
In fact, I would like to say that I feel this materially changes it in such a way that we should start over and have a new plan when you have it better flushed out. And we've now have a whole new set of abutters with a whole new set of their concerns. And I feel like it's materially changed the project in such a way that it's not the same project.
Well, I don't know if I'd say it's not the same project, but it certainly is materially different in many, many ways. The traffic study is key.
I agree with Deirdre.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
it's a whole new,
Okay.
we need to approach it from, I mean, we're starting all over again. New traffic study, new abutter.
Well, certainly new traffic study and new abutters. I'd also note that although this is a project being presented by a private entity with their own objectives, something of this size is likely to have a town component. And we're now in a position where we can talk about some very interesting things, just talk about them, and this is, at this point, just talk, about, for example, truck restrictions on River Neck for portions of River Neck, which, if done properly, might very well end all the truck traffic on River Neck, except, coming across in that small section to get on to Apollo. And that might be something of interest and importance to a lot of people on River Neck, even the more distant abutters.
I would request that the applicant withdraw without prejudice and come back when you have the details flushed out And with the traffic study,
I think there's some
No.
legal reasons why they can't do that.
why?
Because that would reset with some of the stuff that's, is being presented or potentially being presented at town meeting. I don't know quite how to explain it
Yeah,
better.
if,
No, why?
Because then they might find themselves limited by stuff that would get passed at town meeting because it was presented. How does the ruling work on that?
I'd have to give that some more thought.
Yeah, this is
yeah,
this is
I
not-
don't
it's
think
not
we
a
can do
simple
that
matter.
at all
I mean,
legally.
Yeah.
I would certainly encourage you to ask the
Yeah, I will.
applicant
I
just
will
their
ask town
thoughts about
council
that. I'm
to
sure
be sure, but
I'm sure they've
I-
thought about this scenario.
yeah, I
I
believe.
I think this
there are
changes
reasons.
conditions, it's not a new application.
Yeah.
It's the same,
But
same
at a-
building,
you know, I
same
mean,
use.
At a minimum, like we've done through this process, if this is continued out for an extended period of time, in order for them to prepare new plans
Yeah.
and new submissions, we can certainly do a new abutter notification.
Oh, absolutely.
and
Yeah, we
expand
can
it,
repeat all of that easily
you know.
enough.
Or
across the
have
street.
the
Yeah, we did that with
Apollo
9 Acton
separate.
Road.
Separate, the Apollo situation would be a completely
Yeah.
separate thing in front of the
It'd
board.
be good to hear
Yes.
from,
Yeah.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, if I could, yes, it would be a separate application because on the Apollo site, you're going to, I assume there's either a special permit or a minimum site plan. So you're going to have to modify the site plan to lay out the new roadway and how that's going to look. So
Yeah.
we have no problem giving the notification, et cetera,
Once
so
you
that
have
it's
the
a,
plan.
yeah. And also on this, we don't have any problem giving, prior to the next meeting, giving additional notification on this. With respect to the legal ramifications of withdrawing, first of all, there's a major time issue.
Yeah.
And second, I would submit that at the first meeting, or one of the first meetings, I think it was actually the board that suggested we look at alternative access.
Yes.
That unfortunately, that on a major project of that nature, it doesn't happen overnight where you call up
I
the
understand.
abutter and say, we'd like to buy it. But we've been working very diligently, and I have spoken to your staff who's inquired periodically, but we weren't at liberty to discuss it. But, you know, I don't know who brought up I think it was the chair just a minute ago. This provides a lot of tools that the town may be able to utilize, because in order to have a truck exclusion on a road, you have to have an alternative access.
Right.
And that this now provides you with the ammunition to go to the state and say, we'd like a truck exclusion on the entirety of River Neck Road.
Yeah.
We have issues to look at. We have to look at the site radius at 129, how that ties in, what the traffic counts are there. We recognize all those issues. And frankly, we wish we could have been in this position 6 months ago, but we don't control that,
Yeah.
that aspect of the equation. But I just want the board and the abutters and those concerned citizens to know, we have listened, and we have tried to respond in a thoughtful manner to all of the questions. Unfortunately, as I said, we don't control all of the possible solutions, but this could turn into a major solution for that whole side of the town in terms of truck traffic.
Yeah, that indeed it could. We can hope that it will. All right, given that there've been did you want to say something, Anita? I thought
I did.
Okay, go ahead,
Regarding
please.
the Apollo access, have you thought about, instead of just connecting it across, doing the road going under River Neck Road, so there's no option for the trucks to turn right or left?
Can't.
No, we haven't considered that.
Like doing an underpass so it goes into the property underneath,
All
so
I
it
would,
doesn't have to cross over.
all I would say to that is that I can tell you right now, the economics of what we're doing to acquire the site and make a road out of the fire lane are really kind of pushing us to the brink. I think the added cost of going under River Neck would make it cost prohibitive.
I would also comment that if we do that, then we effectively lose the opportunity to put truck exclusions on most of River Neck.
Yeah.
And,
like that.
there's
Like
a
that
trade-off
cherry on
there.
top.
Say, could I just add that it is a timing consideration for us to have to withdraw and then come back. We were considering how much time would we need to evaluate some of this. I would like to ask the board for 90 days of continuance for us to do more work.
Given the amount of work that you've got, I mean, just getting the traffic study together is 30 of that at least. I think
fine
that's
with that.
actually a fairly reasonable request.
Yeah.
And I'm perfectly willing to do that. That means everybody gets their nights back for 3 months. And then when you get back to us, we'll be looking at fairly well-baked plans.
Meeting in January?
Yes. I mean, as I said, we have this under a letter of intent
Yeah.
between now and that, so it'd be a binding agreement, and we'd have more details about the implications to that site, so there's a lot to be developed.
That date would be January 25th, 2023.
I'm fine with that. So
You fine with that? Can we take a,
Motion to continue to January 25th?
Can I just ask?
Yes.
That, I know you're gonna take it back and look at the size of the building, but, the concern about the size of the building is how close it is to the neighbors. So there needs to be a quality of life that they're not impacted. And I appreciate the trucks is only a piece of it, but these are people who have invested quite a bit of money in their homes. These are their homes. They want to be able to go home and relax and not, be hearing and be that close. The building's very high. It's large.
It's one story.
So I do ask you to go back during these 90 days and look at what you can do to minimize the impact to these abutters.
So one of the things on our list would be during this time frame to perhaps meet with some of the key abutters, that are affected by this. There may be other ways that the project can be mitigated in terms of buffering, increased landscaping. There's a variety of things that we could consider doing. And the only thing I would just, again, reiterate is this is a very expensive solution, and we need to pay for it somehow.
understood.
thank you.
Very good.
One other
Sure.
point, Mr. Chairman, during this 90-day continuance, with the board's permission, if issues come up that we would like to keep the staff informed, do we have the board's permission to speak to staff?
Oh, I was, next thing I was going to say was, feel free to work with the development department there, and for any, because I'm sure you're going to have questions.
Well,
over the course of
and
90
on
days.
that point, as staff can attest to, this past month, we did meet with the public safety, town engineering to look at the sidewalk issue. So, as we said in the first meeting, what we say we're going to do, we're going to do. It's just that we couldn't reveal everything we were
Understood.
considering. Thank you.
Very good.
If I could just add, too, during that time frame, we may want to come back and talk to you and bounce some ideas off of you as the situation evolves.
Absolutely. I mean, there is nothing keeping us from putting you on the agenda for
Discussions.
communication of that sort.
Update.
Okay, that all said,
Need a motion.
we're going to need a motion to continue the public hearing, in fact, the whole darn
I
thing.
gave you that.
You've got that.
Why don't
I
we
need
start with that?
seconded.
Second.
Does further discussion in favor?
Aye.
We got 4, 5. Okay, so you're good with the extension. And do we need
It's the public hearing. Do we need to?
separately continue the public hearing?
No, you just
No, we just did.
Okay, so that takes care of it. We're all set until the second meeting in January. And Evan, if you could, as we get information, if we get information that's
Absolutely.
reasonable to distribute, let's get it out to the people in the area, and as early as we possibly can. I know Anita will probably help with some of that, and
Point of order, is there going to be an opportunity for the public to speak to you?
not tonight, no. The situation has changed substantially enough that I think it's in everybody's interest to continue the public input until we have a traffic plan.
Till we know.
Until we know what
Until we
we're
have enough
talking about.
information to work with.
Speak tonight, because we do have things to say to the project.
Well, he's going to reach out to you.
I understand your concern. No, I'm not going to do that tonight, but feel free, please, to reach out to the proponents or to reach out to Evan if you have specific questions that we can deal with. I don't think it's appropriate for us to take.
Well,
Okay.
if you send an email and you don't
Wait.
get a response, how do you communicate them?
Yeah.
I've sent emails and I don't get a response.
Yeah, we don't necessarily respond to every email. We get quite a lot of
Right,
them.
So shouldn't he be able to speak?
No.
Wait a we move on.
Okay,
Next topic.
very good.
Want to take a 5-minute break?
Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
And anybody wants to address me directly, Chris, you probably have a few things you want to say to me. Yeah.
Be a state trooper,
We're
you should
ready.
know that.
Yes, I believe. Ready.
How are you?
I know where you, I know where you live on Carter Drive.
I do too. I know your brother Rick. How are you? He should not be allowed back in here.
I don't know, but you might.
Was it? Does he live on Carter?
He does.
Yeah.
I grew up on Dawn Drive.
He raises a valid point, though, and he's agitated, so.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay.
He lives on Carter, you don't need to say names.
Yeah. Poor
All
guy.
right.
There's a lot of tension there.
Oh, and by the way, Stowe does not even have a Dunkin' Donuts anymore.
Well, the coffee's gotten
Those
better
small
in
towns are
town.
gonna get
Yeah.
hit harder with the MBTA community.
Yeah. All right, the next up is 84 Turnpike, Martell Crane and Tree.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shanahan. It's been an interesting night. John McKenna, I'm the attorney for the applicant, Martell Tree and Crane Company, CJ Martell. In the back room, should probably grab him. Chucky's the owner of the property. So this is a continuation of our application for a special permit. We continued for a chance to go out to have a site walk and to see the property. It gave me time to talk with the neighbors. I talked to the neighbor to the left who wanted to preserve the natural berm that's there now to make sure that the natural flow of the water goes to the back of the property, not onto his property. We agreed to do that. The abutter to the left is represented by Attorney John Gallant, who I've had time to talk to today and come to an agreement to preserve that area over there, topography of the land, to make sure the natural flow of water doesn't go onto his neighbor's property. He's aware that we're going to be parking trucks there. We're going to have a fence there for security. The fence and where the berm is will be coordinated with the neighbor. So as if the fence needs to be in front of the berm and not on top of the berm, depending on the stability of the berm and what happens over there, we'll work with him. The neighbor to the right, I met with him on Friday afternoon. There's a beautiful wall that Chuck had built. Spent $50,000 on a nice stone wall. The fence over there, there's going to be a gate in the front, and the fence will be on top of the wall. The wall's like 3.5 feet to 48 inches to 4 feet. So the fence on that side, the neighbor doesn't want to look at a fence, so we'll put some hedges or some landscaping in front of the fence there so they look at something appropriate. And then also the fence around the building is going to be 6 feet, but in that area would be shorter because of the height of the wall. I talked with the fence company and with the neighbor to work with him and also to preserve the security in that area, but also be aware of your abutters. And then the proposed plan that we submitted shows landscaping in the front part of the property to improve that for the residential neighbors across the street. So I'm here as the attorney. C.J. Martell is here. We have the owner, Chuck, and Attorney Gallant represents the neighbor. So, Mr. Chairman, through you, we're open for questions.
Okay.
You can see what the neighbors.
Yeah, why don't we see what the view is over there?
Good evening, I'm John Gallant. I do represent the neighbor on 80 Turnpike, John Kachajian. He's been there for a number of years. He had one primary concern, and that is that they've, based upon the ownership of the previous ownership of this property, they've built a berm in the back of the property because there was water that was transferring from this property to his property into his garage. It was contaminated water. There is some contamination on the site, and he just wants to make sure that that berm is either reconstructed or maintained with some vegetation to prevent that water flow onto his property. They've agreed to that. We'd like it as a condition of the special permit that berm be maintained and that berm be either created or structured so that they prevent that water flow onto his property. They're going to put some screening there by means of a fence and some vegetation as well to make sure that that berm is maintained and not washed away, and that's really his primary concern. So,
Just to clarify, is that berm on which property is the berm physically?
the berm is on this property that's the subject of this permit. It's not on my client's. It was constructed with the owner of the previous owner of this property. There is some stone there and some trees and vegetation, and if they're going to remove that, we just make sure that they want to they reconstruct it.
And just one further clarification. If I understand the proposal correctly, that the truck access is to go around the back of the building and come around and have access to the left side of the building. Will the location of that berm interfere with that truck, those trucks maneuvering?
I don't believe so, based upon their plan. There's
all
a
right.
foundation there, I think it's gonna be removed, and then they're gonna be able to park trucks on that side of the building, which is, again, fine with my client. We'd like some screening from that, but aside from the fact he just wants to make sure that.
So just so I understand the condition, you want the existing berm to be preserved?
And
In the
maintained.
event it needs to be disturbed, you want it somehow re-replicated?
Yeah, it's not in great shape. It's been there for a number of years. There's some stone and some vegetation and some trees there. To the extent that they're gonna do some site work, they're gonna either rebuild the berm or make sure that the berm is maintained when they leave, so that prevents that water flow onto his property.
Is there a telephone pole right in the berm?
There's a telephone pole, yes, in that area of the berm as well.
That's correct.
Yeah. So they're gonna have to deal with that, and some trees, there's some trees in that area as well that
Yeah,
they're
it's
gonna have to deal with.
overgrown pine tree.
And it helps maintain the berm, so the vegetation will help maintain it, and to the extent that they're gonna take any of that, they're gonna have to replace it to make sure that stays there. And we're fine with that. We're not opposed to the use of the special permit, we just wanna make sure that.
And they're moving that transformer.
Is the berm working now? It's obviously.
Yes, it has worked. Since they've installed it, the berm works.
Okay.
So that's what we
Well,
want to
that's
make
an
sure.
eminently reasonable, eminently reasonable condition.
And we agree with that.
Okay, and you're good with it? Okay.
Absolutely, like you said, that makes sense. It's working now, we're gonna keep it there and work with the neighbor to make sure that, anything that's done, it's shored up and, maintain communication with the neighbor on any work done over there.
Gotcha. Okay, let's see. Well, we'll have some conversation about what we might want to consider drafting, but I believe this is a public hearing?
Yes.
So before we get even into the public hearing, we do have some letters to read.
So I provided those to the board.
Yeah.
Those are not typical.
Okay, they don't need to be read onto the record? Okay.
Yeah, so the first one is an internal memo.
Yeah, okay.
Based upon the assumption that issue would be revisited tonight.
Okay.
It doesn't sound like sounds like that issue has been resolved.
Okay, good.
The second letter is from an abutter based upon a meeting that took place.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not a town departmental letter. And the third letter or email also appears to have been resolved based upon what we just heard
Okay.
from the attorney representing an abutter. My point is that
Yeah.
there seemed to have been a variety of issues that were expressed at the first meeting
Yeah.
that appear to have likely been resolved.
Okay.
Or they're not being brought up at this meeting.
Okay. Do you think we have enough, do we have enough information, or did you have enough information we can
Yeah,
draft up a
so the only
decision?
question I have, the only new condition I've heard tonight is about the berm being maintained. You submitted a site plan. It showed some site improvements.
Yep.
Based upon the abutter meetings, did the fence heights, were any of those revised? Or are you installing 6-foot fences?
It's a 6-foot fence is what we intend. But the only issue is over on the right side where there's a 4-foot wall. If the 6-foot fence over there, we're gonna talk to the fence company, find out what the compliance is with the bylaws with regards to a fence on top of a wall to make sure we comply with the proper code there. If it, looks awkward to have a 6-foot
yeah,
fence on top of
okay.
there, and then we may need to step that fence down a bit, but
Okay.
preserve the security.
And all the fencing's gonna have slats?
That's
Or-
correct.
Okay.
Slatted, okay.
So Evan, where is this site plan that you said was submitted?
We asked for a waiver of the site plan. What
I'm
we
sorry, it
asked for
was an
a-
exhibit, I should
the
say.
exhibit, the drawing, due to the fact that,
This one here
come in
on
and
the
buy the
screen.
property, we didn't have time to have a site plan drawn by an engineer to go through a full site plan.
So I'm concerned about not having a site plan on this, and engineering had a concern as well in the letter that you submitted to us. There obviously is excavation of some degree that has to take place there for that parking to exist, and this site has had hazardous materials on it, so disrupting the soil is an issue.
Is there?
I can't imagine doing this without a site plan, a drainage plan.
Says TCE is there.
Oh, I didn't think they were paving, or I thought they were, it was staying the
That's
existing.
correct. That's why we didn't want to disturb anything that's why we're not get involved in pavement or increasing the impervious surface.
There's an electrical transformer on a hill where they want to put the trucks.
they're gonna have to do
So they
something.
have to do something there.
Yeah.
So, you know, there has to be some amount of excavation, there has to be some amount of rewiring, building entry rewiring taking place. It definitely is affecting drainage because there's a hill there now.
Yeah.
And the plan they're submitting puts large trucks parking on a
Dirt.
pervious surface, and we require that parking spaces be paved.
Could we require, for the purposes of this
I have no
meeting?
problem with that, I'm just saying, I thought they said they were gonna be keeping the existing, and it wasn't.
It's not, it can't
grass.
stay as
Yeah.
existing.
Grass.
It's not grass.
Well, on the left side of the building, it's grass, and then
Yeah.
that berm.
Did you see grass there? Because it,
I got a picture
it
of
was, looked like dirt to me, and it looked like dirt that was
I
3
didn't go
feet
to
higher
the back
than.
of the property, but the
Okay.
left side of the
I
property
did do
where
a
the
site
work's gonna be
walk
done.
on the adjacent
Okay,
properties.
hold on, did you have a comment?
I was just saying, for the purposes of applying for the special permit, we sought the waiver from the site plan requirements to, in order to get in here and make the proposal to the board for the special permit. If we were to do any work or any activity on there, requiring a permit, like she said, with the electrical and like that, then we'd have to apply for the electrical permit through the permitting process and show a plan of what's being done with the
Yeah, well,
electrical.
that-
If there was gonna be changes to the surface there, we could provide a plan at that time to show what the change is and how it isn't increasing the impervious surface, and have an engineer submit a plan for those particular purposes. But why we asked for the waiver for this special permit is because in order to buy the property, we only have a short due diligence period to get in here and find out if we can do what we want to do on the site. As soon as we go to make improvements, then through the permitting process, we can provide the plans and the more details of the drainage if we're going to change this area over here for parking, to show that it's not being increased pervious and that the stormwater management control doesn't apply because we're not putting asphalt on there. So in order to do that, we could, come back and have the further information from an engineer at that time, and he would know what he needs to do. But to have a site plan to come in, we wouldn't be able to get a site plan from an engineer and still meet the requirements for the seller to be able to buy the property with the due diligence. That's why we asked for this waiver for this proposal, to show you what we want to do. But when it comes time to do it, you'd have to go and show through the Board of Health or to the engineer's office, whoever is in charge of drainage, review of the drainage, that, what we're doing there and the improvements that we're making to park these trucks is going to be contained, and it's proper drainage for that area. And that would be reviewed through the...
Back,
They would have to come back here with a site plan modification.
got you.
You can handle this a couple different ways.
Okay.
What they're seeking is basically an approval based upon their exhibit and some conditions.
That's correct.
If the board has a heightened sensitivity of the left side of the building, there could be another condition that says prior to land disturbance, they have to submit some sort of drainage calcs to the town engineer.
Like that.
That's, I think, the direction we want to go.
Right, I would,
'Cause he wouldn't be able to park his trucks there unless he.
right, so on one hand, I kind of understand they explained it better tonight,
Yeah.
why they were seeking the site plan waiver. The other complicating factor is, and as the board has experience with this, sites that are contaminated, you try to limit disturbance.
Right.
In fact, we did that with Kidder Road.
Yep,
Was probably
we
the
did,
best
I remember
example. And so it kind of makes sense where they don't want to do traditional paving, but I can also understand the board's concern with taking a non-impervious area and looking for, some level of review by the town engineer.
Yeah, well, I would like to see some level of review, although I'm perfectly happy to grant approval, subject to a condition that that information be properly supplied.
I think that makes sense.
If that works for you, I want to see how it works for the rest of the
As
board.
long as there's something in there, like you said, Nancy, I agree with the trucks parking there and.
Yeah, I want a whole lot of
I think
conditions on this.
As long as we know they're gonna do that, if they.
And hours of operation, because it's across the street from residential.
He's gonna be a great neighbor, because he's gone all day.
Tree works during the day, typically.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's got trucks running out in the morning and back in at night, and the question is, what time are those trucks rolling in the morning?
Yeah.
And I can tell you from living on 110 that rolling at 6 a.m. is not pleasant.
Gotcha.
All time to get up.
I have a question. I was out there the other day, and on the left side of the building where we're concerned, isn't there like a partial foundation?
Yeah, that's going to be removed.
Yeah, there's a hole there,
That's
actually.
excavation,
That's
right?
yeah, this site
I
absolutely
have the picture
requires
right here.
excavation.
So what we'd be saying, though, is they would have to come
Get
in.
approval and show what we're going to do there prior
They,
to any
they need to come in with a site plan, for God's sake,
Agreed.
before they can do anything.
I mean, are you willing to put that as a condition? You're essentially giving an approval. I think that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, and I understand why they want the approval now, and I think it makes sense.
Approval for the use.
We're agreeing with it, except for we want to see,
We want to see the.
We need conditions met.
We need conditions met, exactly.
When a contaminated, excuse my ignorance, but when a contaminated piece of property changes hands, there's no like Mass DEP, anything like that comes into play?
Well, my understanding is this site is already a designated contaminated site. It already is in the DEP system.
Yeah.
It already has a program in place for remediation.
Oh,
So that needs to be part of that site plan, though.
what's that plan?
I mean, not necessarily. It depends on where it is, what kind of contamination, what kind of remediation system. Similar to other planning board matters, Katrina being a good example, the board didn't really spend a lot of time on that particular aspect of because it's just not within your jurisdiction. But you would ask questions like, if there is a remediation system in place, make sure it's protected.
Right.
Make sure you're not damaging it.
But it needs to be shown on the site plan, it needs to have engineering sign off on it. I mean, I'm just not seeing a plan here. I mean, conceptually, I can say, yeah, okay,
Applicability.
it would be applicable to put this use there, but I can't approve this plan because I don't have a plan.
Right, this is a site plan special permit, so we're requesting a special permit. It's just a special permit for a contractor's yard with outdoor use, using this as an exhibit, and that's a waiver we're requesting. But if there's any work that needs to be done, it needs to be compliant with whatever monitoring wells are there, and they have to be identified, and any work that's done would have to show that on the plan, and that's what I was expressing to the board, that anything that's done on the site would have to show. If he comes in and just puts his equipment in the property and doesn't change that surface over there, then he'd have to deal with it that way. But when he comes in to try to do something over there, he's going to show the engineer what he's doing, and that there's no increase or change in the water surface as was requested by the neighbor. So that would be the next step.
This isn't just
But if we
going to
can't-
engineering, this is coming to the planning board with a site plan change.
And this is a special permit. This isn't a site plan review, what we're going for here. This is a
That's my
special
point.
permit for a contractor's yard.
But you're showing a site plan that is different than the existing site today, and you're asking us to approve it for that use.
What we're
So
showing.
it is a site plan
So
change.
what we're showing is where we asked for was a waiver from the site
Yeah.
plan requirements to go through all the process, because we're not building a new building. We're leaving the building there. We're not changing the impervious surface in the parking area, but we're changing the use of the property, and we need a special permit. And then for any other use that goes or exasperates anything or triggers any other permit, like the removal of the pole and the wires, that would trigger electrical permits or permits like that.
Well, those permits are of less concern to us because they're managed by different departments
Correct.
and different inspectors.
Yeah, I mean, the primary elements to site plan on this particular case are impervious and drainage.
So if that was something to change that, we
But
would
that's
come
why I'm
before the
suggesting,
board.
if the board's inclined to,
You would have to go through
you could just put a condition that they submit a, some sort of drainage stormwater plan
Yes,
for wherever they're.
subject to the approval
Yeah,
of.
yeah,
That's
right.
of
I
engineering.
mean, I guess
I'm
I
willing
would
to
be
do that.
okay with a bunch of conditions that would include no vehicle access around the left side of the building,
Until,
until you give us a real site plan.
that be acceptable, stuff like,
I
something
mean,
like that. I agree.
because this isn't a site plan. And you can't do this without making changes to that site.
That's the one side I checked out.
Yeah, I mean,
Paul, can I see your
Me-
picture?
I guess
Yeah.
for me would be conditions.
yeah,
Their
with a
decision.
lot of conditions.
I get why he's doing it though, to purchase.
Oh, I
it,
get
right?
why he's doing it.
I can see into what he's going to do, you know,
There's a
looks,
mold
it's gonna be
But
a
I can't
huge
approve
improvement.
this.
That all out,
I
redo
get
that
it.
berm.
I would only
That's
with
the left side of the
conditions.
building, it's grass.
With conditions,
Right.
with,
It
with a
goes
whole lot of
into
conditions.
That surface.
This is what I was talking about.
Yeah.
This thing. And that is
Well,
grass.
yeah, it's 3 or 4 feet higher.
So that-
And there's-
that's
and
gonna
there's
have
a
to be
found-
removed.
There's a,
So he's gonna have to apply, and she's
a
gonna need
hole
engineering.
there
Could you
with a
propose a
foundation that
brief
goes to a
list of
basement.
conditions for us and see?
I can, I just, let me, are you, what's your timeline? What's the time constraints?
We were, last week was our timeline.
So, I mean, here's the conditions that I've heard. The existing berm to be maintained to prevent water flow onto 80 Turnpike. And then, no alterations on the left side of the building where grass now exists.
foundation.
Forget the where grass now exists. There's no
Okay.
grass on that.
There's a
So-
little bit.
So no alterations, no
There's weeds on
disturbance, no use of the left side of the
That's
building
right.
until such time as a site plan is submitted
And
for
approved.
review and approval by the town engineer.
Yeah.
To include drainage.
I'm perfectly
and-
happy to
No,
have
it has to come back here.
Okay, all right. If they're willing to do that, that's fine.
That has to come back here as a site plan.
Just for that left side of the building, where they're gonna
Well,
introduce,
for the whole site, if you're changing it.
well, I mean, the rest of the site has existing paving, and their exhibit shows, so I was just keying in on the area that's currently not labeled
Right.
paving. Is clearly not an area where you can park on now structurally. That's gonna need alteration and likely a plan prepared by an engineer and reviewed by
That's
our
right.
engineer. Like the right side of the building's already paved.
So Evan, I'm concerned about any changes on this site because it does have hazardous waste on it and the implications to the hazardous waste management.
Can you talk about it?
No.
So I mean,
I can.
I can't
And
say.
to the point of that is this environmental study, the prior use was a grinding shop in there many years back. And I happened to get educated by Mr. Gallant's client on Friday afternoon. So during the process of the grinding operations and the solvents that they used, there was fluids that went out. And I believe the neighbor across the street has talked about monitoring wells, so they've been there for years. And
Are there
hasn't
any
been
on the
issues.
site?
There is a monitoring well on the site,
my
there's a
point.
monitoring well across on the other side. So any work that would have to be done to change on there would have to be in compliant with that, and then be in compliant with the stormwater management. That's why we didn't want to change too much of what was going on
Yeah,
over
I
there.
can understand.
Is
So-
the
but that could be
well on the
conditioned.
left side of the building, or is it somewhere entirely different?
It's in the front, there's
There's 4 wells.
4 wells, and I believe there's 2 in the front, and I think do you know where they are?
I live nearby.
Yep, do you want
I
to
have
come
the whole
up?
history if you want.
Sure, we'd like to
I
have
even
it,
know the
Chuck's
guy
there.
that dumped the 55-gallon barrels in the back.
I mean, all I'm asking is
After
that,
that.
are there any of those existing monitoring wells within this left side of the building where clearly they need to do disturbance to accommodate and upgrade it to have trucks parking there? If the monitoring wells are in existing paved area and they're not proposing to do anything, and it's been used as parking area, I'm not sure if there's a heightened sensitivity.
Excuse me, I am the owner of the building.
Come on up, Chip.
There are 4 wells on the site. One is in the very back of the building.
Come on up and
Yeah, just point out.
let us know who you are.
And have them point to the,
Yeah.
Charles Byrne, owner of 84 Turnpike. I run CWB Steel Erectors out of the building. All you guys have been very welcoming to me when I first came in. I went a little crazy, did a lot of improvements on the property, but the concern that you're talking about as far as the wells go, there's one directly behind the building, about 10 feet out.
Can you
and-
point on the, can you
On
point
the map
thing?
here? All right, let's say, all right, so there's one about right here, there's one here, here, and I believe there was one somewhere over here in the front. But those are the only 4. There is no monitoring wells on this side of the building that I am aware of. And I was told when I bought the property that it popped clean on the environmental, the 21E on it. That's why I bought the building. I waived my conditions for it because I was more concerned about the building and what it had, the potential. So that's the whole reason why I bought it and tried to take it from being an eyesore and invest all the money into it that I could to make it a viable asset to the town, you know, and clean it up. And it's been a viable asset for me. Unfortunately, I just need a little more space, and that doesn't, you know, suit my needs. And I think the other concern that you were worried about was that foundation. I think there's ways you can manipulate and get around it without digging into the dirt. You can cut that foundation down with a diamond blade cutoff saw, break it off, and then bury the existing foundation that's there. And I think you can grade it out perfectly without disturbing the soil. That would have been my intention if I were to stay there. You know, so there are multiple ways I think that you can manipulate and try to limit the exposure and, you know, causing any risk. But I thought it was mainly a chemical, some kind of like chromium or something that was in the water that popped clean. I don't know for sure. It's not my expertise. I really, you know.
But it had a clean 21E?
It did have a clean 21E when I bought it. That's why I bought it, because once you get involved in environmental, the cost of, you know, repairing things, it's astronomical, you know, and me as a, you know, single sole proprietor, I can't afford something like that, you know, so.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for explaining.
All right. So can we put a reasonable enough set of conditions together that will satisfy the buyer's need to finish the transaction and satisfy the town's need to ensure that,
I have two.
Okay.
Again, the berm to be maintained to prevent water flow onto 80 Turnpike. Left side of the building not to be disturbed or used in any manner until such time as a plan prepared by a professional engineer is submitted, reviewed, and approved by the town engineer.
right, I think that's fair.
Wouldn't the whole property be not disturbed? I mean,
I would think the whole property would
well-
at that point, but
But they're not proposing any alterations
Oh,
with the
just on the
exception of the
left
left
side,
side.
yeah, okay.
the left side's the only
Right.
thing they're proposing.
Okay.
I mean, they're in order to put trucks there, they're gonna have to do something to secure the land, otherwise won't the,
Right.
yeah.
Hours of operation, no trucks rolling before 7 AM.
Is that
See,
even
he might leave
We
at
can't
6
do
AM.
that. Yeah, he can't do that.
Yeah, I don't think that that's fair. I mean, I don't,
It's an industrial zone.
because the current owner could leave at 5 AM right now, and he's got big trucks as well, so what's the difference?
Yeah, I don't think that's fair.
How's it going? Hi.
Introduce yourself.
I'm CJ Martell, looking to buy the property. So what would be the biggest concern about the trucks leaving before 7 AM? Primarily the noise?
Neighbors.
Thankfully, mostly all of my trucks are new or newer, and even, you know, them being diesels, they're really not that loud. And we do offer 24-hour emergency service. It's not, you know, every day or even, you know, once or twice a month that a tree comes on someone's house and we have to, you know, do the job at midnight. But it can happen sometimes, you know. Or if we get a big snowstorm, it stops snowing at 1 in the morning or whatever, and we want to have somebody come by and start cleaning up the snow like any other, like,
That's not your trucks.
Just your trucks, your hours
My-
of operation.
We're just
Yeah.
talking your
Just your
trucks.
hours of
Yeah.
operation.
That's part of the operation.
We're talking standard hours of operation here.
What
not-
would be your
not
hours of
emergency.
operation for you?
my guys clock in at 6:30, and they get back anytime between 3 p.m. and 7. You know, in the summertime when it gets, I mean, it stays light until almost
I
9.
mean, you're not far
Okay,
off half hour.
6:30 to 8 PM. Can you live
But
with
also
that?
if he has
Yeah,
emergencies.
emergency, I couldn't really
That'd be
have.
very
Yeah, but
hard to-
standard
Yeah,
hours of
yeah.
operation.
If you have an emergency,
Emergency's
you have
an
an emergency.
emergency.
Yeah.
Excluding emergencies, standard hours of
Part of the reason you
operation.
want a service like that.
That's right.
I just
And you
like,
do.
You do.
I wouldn't want to be limited in the sense of, because there's so many things that can happen in my business, right? So even if I'm doing a job and everything's done at the job at 2 PM, one of my trucks is broken in someone's yard, right? And then a mechanic comes and fixes it. Now the truck ends up rolling back at my shop at 10 PM because the mechanic.
That's an emergency.
Okay.
Standard hours of
As
operation.
long, right, as long as I wouldn't have restrictions in that regard, then I'd be okay with that.
6:30
You know,
to 8 o'clock.
just as long as abutters would understand that, like, yes, sometimes the
Keep
trucks.
your neighbors happy, we won't hear about it.
Yeah, really.
They don't want you chipping wood on the lot.
Yeah.
Really,
As long as you have a
seriously.
good relationship
So
with your neighbors.
those
also.
6:30 to 8 o'clock,
6:30 to 8 o'clock,
8 p.m.
standard hours of operation.
6:30 a.m. would be standard hours, absent an emergency. Is that acceptable to you?
Might I suggest that, at least in summertime, daylight runs till 9?
Yeah, 9.
9.
Okay.
You got it.
All right, so this, I see 3 special conditions here.
Okay.
The fence has to be,
Minimum 6 feet, right?
yeah,
Except on the
With
wall
slats.
side, whatever that.
yeah, except on the wall side.
Yep.
And there has to be a fence across the front of the building to the,
Yeah, they have a gate. showing
yeah, the
the
gate
exhibit.
has to be in place at the, yep. And landscaping is required. Landscaping is required to be put in,
Which they show on the
as
exhibit.
shown on the demonstration.
Exhibit.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else on the board? Anita, do you have any comments? Anything you want to throw out here?
Oh, no outdoor storage of materials.
Well, their exhibit in their application does show some
We've talked about this.
material storage.
Oh, okay.
And it's out back, it's
It's out back.
closed
Oh, that's
in,
the
Logs.
logs.
And I can,
Sometimes
I know what that business looks like. Yeah, and then, yeah, you
Okay,
come in with a log now and then.
all right.
It's just,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, the truth is you can't get your trucks through there if
they
you put a
don't
bunch
just
of
grow on
stones in
trees,
there.
you know? Maybe they do.
All right.
Okay, now, I believe this is a public hearing, is it not?
It is.
And let me give public an opportunity to comment. I mean, we've heard from the attorney for neighbors. Is there anybody else that would, yeah, step on up, let us know who you are, and.
Hi, my name is Ann Donahue, and I live at 81 Turnpike
Okay.
Road.
You're 81, so you're, what, directly across or across and over?
I'm across like and over.
Okay.
All right.
One of the things that I was worried about, I don't think it's going to be a worry because he seems like a reasonable gentleman, so, and I'm not a crabby neighbor by any stretch. Idling of trucks.
I'm sorry, what?
Idling of trucks.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what we
idling,
were just
yeah.
I had a neighbor, when I first moved there, who lived next door, and he idled his motorcycle at 5:30 in the morning for half an hour every day. Drove me absolutely crazy. So the idea of all the trucks, I don't care if they're going in and out. 6:30 to 8, 9 o'clock is great. I don't have any problem with that either, because that's perfectly reasonable. As long as they're not sitting there idling for a long period of time
well,
in the front.
Now,
In the front.
nowadays, you can hardly afford to let anything idle
That's what I was
very long.
thinking. That's my only thing. I met with the lawyer and the other abutters,
Yeah.
and everything seems perfectly reasonable
Okay.
to me.
Well,
The
that's,
other abutters, did they have any concerns from your interaction with them?
They were all addressed to him.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody was very frank, and it was a very good amicable meeting. The other thing is the stormwater. That does worry me, because
yeah.
if the berm goes to and keeps the water from going over to 80, it might run down to the road, and then if the drain is there, that's run by the city, the town, but if it's blocked, it goes right down my driveway and into my house.
Understood, and that is it's a problem,
That
and
is
it's
a
a real
concern.
problem.
So,
It's a problem that kind of belongs to the town, but
Yeah.
does that ever happen up there? Have
It
you had
has
that
happened, yes. It has happened.
If it ever,
And
just
I
get
have-
on the
I
phone and
still
call
have
the
a- I still have a little
DPW
pipe.
instantaneously.
I still have a little pipe that's in my basement when they did the water testing.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah,
you know.
but yeah, if that ever does happen, get to the DPW ASAP.
Yeah, I went and cleared the drain.
Yeah.
What I did. And I jumped
It's a
in the
lot
puddles.
faster than dealing with the
Nothing else I could do.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you
That's
very
true.
much.
Thank you, have a good night.
Brian, did you want to say something?
I did.
Fire away.
Thank you. Brian Latina, Precinct 9 Town Meeting Rep, 15 Jesse Road. I live just around the corner from Turnpike. When we were discussing the projects at 104 Turnpike, I contacted my chemical expert in New Jersey on the concern that 41 parts per billion of TCE, trichloroethylene,
Is not good stuff.
is 10 times the maximum, not only for the federal government, but Massachusetts and New Jersey. It's so bad in New Jersey, they consider it a background chemical now. This is the chemical that you use to clean metal.
Degreasing, yeah.
Yep. That property has 10 times the standard. My chemical engineer of 40 years and has written a lot of federal documents on chemistry and helped the federal government do this sort of work. And yes, I worked for the Bayer Corporation, Agfa Corporation, as well as he did. When I told him about it, he said, 41 parts per billion TCE is not, could you get cancer from it? You will get cancer. It becomes airborne. If it's in your basement and the drain across the street in one of the houses, I understood to have positive TCE contamination, which is odd. The plume ought to be going away from that property into the industrial area. But the house across the street, when the state tested it with one of those 4 wells, or
When?
one of the wells, I believe it was in the 90s. They were supposed to come out every couple of years. When the projects were going in at 104 Turnpike, my chemical engineer said they should not be building garages in the ground there, and I did make that comment, and I had this whole speech at that time. Nobody in our health, there was one person in our health department that knew about the contamination. None of the Board of Selectmen knew about the contamination. None of the planning board, to my recollection, knew about the contamination. This TCE chemical made Woburn famous.
Very, I remember.
They had pools of it and they dumped it like at this site. This chemical was dumped. I met an individual as a teenager, dumped 55-gallon barrels on that site as part of his job there. He told me.
On 84 Turnpike.
On 84
So the
Turnpike.
river, the Meadowbrook River, has that chemical in it. It was number 4 in the state when I was a kid.
Yep. This is
I used
bad
to
stuff.
swim in that river.
The problem with this stuff is that it doesn't leave the soil except by evaporation, my understanding.
Can you breathe it?
My chemical engineer said, oh, if it went down the sewer, if you dumped it in the sewer, it would go in the Merrimack and it'd dilute and it wouldn't be a problem. I said there was no sewer at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know that facility has a sewer. I assume it does now. If anything was spilled in the building, as it was used for a metal shop, this is a really good chemical for cleaning metal.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Really bad for
I've used it back in my
So I
younger
don't-
days.
Can I ask a question? I
It
don't
came back clean
understand,
when
how
he-
do we gel the 41 parts per million and the clean 21E?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we don't, meaning the board has no authority, no
I know, but
jurisdiction.
those are
Somebody
contradictory
needs
facts,
to,
right?
I live in the
Those are
neighborhood.
contradictory facts, correct?
Right there, right there.
Across the street is the town's, one of the town's wellheads, just up and across, and it's kind of downhill from this. If you alter that berm, and the gentleman that owns the property did some renovations there, it actually looks pretty nice now. They built a rock wall on one side, so there has been some changing of the soil, and it concerned me when I saw it, and I said, well, the town must be well aware of the work that's being done on the site. Obviously, it's for sale. But as somebody that worked for a chemical company, I can tell you the chemical companies and the owners don't really want to know what's underground. And having talked to the particular individual, which I won't name, I can trust them, and I know that those contamination levels were documented by the state of Massachusetts, and it was like they didn't tell us here in town. Neighbor across the street, I don't know if they sold their house to anybody and didn't tell them, but TCE is a bad chemical to have around human beings. I actually told the ambulance service that utilized that building at one point, They happened to stop to approach my son's van that had been hit, my handicapped son in a handicapped van that somebody drove into him on Mill Road. And I talked to them, I said, do you know that you're staying in a building that you should have OSHA required documentation, that you have 41 parts per billion TCE underneath you and you're staying there all night in an ambulance service? The young people didn't know that.
Well,
this is a huge concern. So if you disturb the soil, or arguably if you drive a great big truck with a huge tree on it, I don't know about you guys, but that makes a pretty good dent in the asphalt in the soil. I would say that building should not be used for any purpose other than what it is used for now, and we should be, as a town, checking to see what in the world is in those wells. And if it's all gone, magic happened, we should talk to Woburn. We solved their problem. It does not go away. It does not go away.
Did you talk about this as being mediated or
Monitoring wells.
All I can tell you is that it's regulated as a contaminated site by Mass DEP.
Right, did you say they have to, there's a...
So if I go on their website,
They have a database, and you'll likely be able to find it. The property owner will assume the obligation to continue the monitoring and the expenses associated with the monitoring.
Is it just monitoring, or, so he's talking about now...
There could be remediation that's still ongoing.
Gotcha.
The notion that someone said it has a clean 21E, I can't speak to that. I'm aware that the site is designated with contamination. The status of where it is within its cleanup process, I can't speak to.
Yeah. I'm not aware, having driving by there every day for the last 30 years, I've never seen a remediation truck. And again, working at a chemical plant, we had a little fish tank that showed how clean the water was that ran through our processes, and they had to replace the fish all the time. That property for 15 years by the state DEP had a big blue truck trying to pump the junk out of the bottom of that property, and when it came up clean, all of a sudden, we sold that property. Teterboro, New Jersey, same thing. The water used to run green. We used to bring a train in there. Same problem.
Good news is we have to get
This stuff, once you get a positive official document, great, sell the property.
Well, you know, I think we're wandering a bit far afield, and I say that because we are not.
Right.
We are neither experts on it, nor are we the organization that is tasked. Now, it may well be that the Mass DEP is not the greatest and the most efficient organization on the planet. I can't speak to that. But
you're looking at a project that has no site plan. You're looking at some very heavy trucks when one of those trees comes through that hasn't been in that area. I know they do some pretty heavy metal equipment, but it's a concrete floor and they go through the garage. I don't know what it's like in the back. I'll stop on chemistry for a minute. And again, I'm very concerned about that. On the side of trucks, traffic on Turnpike, it's not designed for heavy trucks. We haven't had heavy trucks on there ever in my 30 years. I was promised when I moved into that house that Mr. Carey, who owned that property, had residential on one side of Turnpike only and light industrial on the other side, never ever to have either on either side. When we passed the CEIOD, I went down to Evan's office and he showed me a map of the CEIOD district. It was bordered by Turnpike. The first properties along Turnpike, I was told, you don't want a contractor yard there with 24-hour trucks going in and out on Turnpike, do you? I said, absolutely not. That's why this pink section along Turnpike, the first property on each one of those, including that property, was grandfathered for whatever it was, but it was going to be a residential buffer zone. That was quoted to me before I went in and voted. And if now we're saying, we're going to go back to IA district, and we're going to put chemical plants in at one end, and we're going to put possibly a TCE contaminated thing near my well at the other end, I don't know what in the world we're doing here. And if everybody keeps pointing at the other the other officials in my town and government, I don't know where I sit. I've been doing town meeting for 30 years. Everybody's pointing in every direction, not us, not us. It's not our responsibility. Health department, not our responsibility. Why didn't all the health department people know that this thing was contaminated? Not, only one knew, because of history. And now the planning board looks and says, well, we don't want to look at zoning, we're just looking at the building we're building.
That's actually not true.
Oh, it is true.
We just said that.
Dalton Road, we
not talking about
suggested
that. We're
that
talking about Turnpike.
only, let's just look at the building. We don't care about the zoning that's violated here.
Talking about Turnpike.
I'm talking about Turnpike too.
Okay.
I'm talking about being a town meeting rep and being told that a contractor yard would not be built there because it was buffer zone residential, because the rest of the property was going to be 6-story buildings, possibly on 129.
No idea what you're talking about right there.
Yeah, I know. I know. That's because I live there and you guys live in other parts of the town.
Because we're actually saying that he's not going to disturb the soil. That's what we're saying, until he,
That's great. That's
part
great.
of our condition. That's all we can
And
do.
a truck driving with a tree trunk on the back doesn't disturb the soil. I don't know if you've seen any trees cut down lately, but
Thank you
my
for your
neighborhood, my
comments.
house shakes when they bump along the road.
There's a steel company there right now.
Yes, sir, there
Steel
is.
heavier than wood. You're telling me trucks haven't been going in there?
They have been,
So
and
if
they've
you
been doing
had
a-
this concern, young man, why didn't you bring it up with the health department?
Right, we point at the health department. Have you talked to them?
With the state? Have
I've
you
talked to
called
them.
the state?
We've been
I'm
told
on the
that-
website right
They've been
now.
told not to talk to one of my.
I'm on the website right now.
Are
I'm
you?
reading it. Give me a minute.
When's the
All
last
right.
time the test was done?
I'm looking at a 2017. It's very hard to follow on this, all right? I'm reading it right now.
Yeah, it is hard.
Okay.
We had the
Well, if
printed,
you knew all this information, why'd you wait for today to send an email out?
I didn't send an email out.
Or a letter?
I didn't send a letter out.
Oh, I thought it was
I
you.
live in the neighborhood, I'm a town meeting
Okay,
representative.
excuse me. I thought it was you that sent it out.
No,
But anyways,
a lawyer did.
You knew about this, right?
I've known about it for years.
Okay, so now, when was that sold, that property, last time?
When was it? I didn't buy it. I don't know when it was sold.
But you drive by it every day.
I think we need to, we're
I
wandering
think
into
we're
the.
we're done here. I guess my question is, what are the residents supposed to do when we have a contaminated site that the planning board is looking at possibly without a site? Thank you for suggesting we have a site plan, and to build a contractor yard, after I was promised that that would not happen because of CEIOD. This is nuts. We've got to start working together, and you folks need to, and each one of the other boards needs to start recognizing that people that live here, the residents, are the town. You're not the town, the residents are the town.
This particular property, though, had a steel erection company working on it. There's not much difference. You're working with wood, with big cranes and trucks, or steel.
Go by community
If you had
tree.
this
Go by
prob-
community tree, and you tell me it's not different.
Okay.
You understand what I'm trying to tell you, right?
Let's rein this in a little bit. I believe the point has been made. So,
And it should be investigated, that
Yeah.
property, obviously.
You need a motion?
The state did?
No, I
Well,
have a
I-
It
question
should be
first.
investigated.
Nancy's got a question.
Hang on, I've got the floor here.
Okay.
All
All right.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Oh, when Brian's done, I have a question for the applicant.
All right, so it's not the planning board's responsibility on chemistry in the soil at a known chemical hazmat site. It wasn't the responsibility of the people in Woburn either. I used to live there as well. I moved away.
So what
There
did
was a
you,
2-year-old that when they were dying of cancer because of TCE, told his mother that he would find her in heaven in the
we
back
get that.
corner of
It was very
heaven, just
emotional.
for the record.
We're getting pretty
this
far afield
chemistry
here.
is dangerous.
Enough.
report right here is under those levels you're talking about. That's what I'm telling you right now, all right?
When was it last tested on your
Well,
report?
this is 2017. Did they dump any more?
Where are your facts from?
You're throwing out numbers. I don't know if
From the
your
state
numbers are.
report.
I don't think you are. You're throwing out numbers. I don't.
Are
know
you
what
calling me
you're-
a liar?
Well, no,
Where
you're
did you get the
scaring everyone
number?
with it.
From the state report.
From what year?
I don't remember, whenever the Turnpike Road projects were built.
I'll
That was
find
a
it
long
here.
time back.
Wasn't a long time back.
Just to get the facts straight, I'll find it in here.
Okay.
It's online.
Enough. Let's leave it at that. Thank you for looking that up, by the way.
Well, I feel like we're getting.
Yeah, right.
You know,
We're
it's
going
serious
around in
business
circles.
he's talking about, first of all.
It is serious business, and,
It's
you know,
very serious.
if we had a site plan here that had any details to it, we could push,
At the end of the day.
request a review from appropriate staffing, but we don't have a site plan here
Right,
that's
but-
actually showing any changes for them
We
to
know their
comment on.
purpose, we know that they can't do
Right.
anything else until they
Yeah,
do
we
have
put
a
enough
site plan.
restrictions on here that they
correct.
have to come get a site
Yeah,
plan, and then it
or
has to
something
go
equivalent
to
to
the
it.
appropriate
That's
people for
correct.
review.
And at the end of the
Okay.
day, the neighbors are happy with it.
Yeah.
Are they gonna be driving trucks down the left side of the building?
No, because we're putting restrictions on that they can't.
Yep.
But they will once
Once they get it.
Once that gets remediated or
Yeah.
planned?
they submit
Only
the
if they
plan
submit
and-
a plan and it gets
Well,
approved.
let me suggest the following.
I still have a question
Oh,
for the
go ahead.
applicant.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you understand in buying this property that there was hazardous waste disposed of on it? And when you buy that property, you assume the financial responsibility for mitigation if it shows up back in the testing?
He understands that. Part of the
I'm just
contingencies of
asking.
purchasing the property is an environmental report. It's part of the financing of the property
Yeah.
as well. This is also one phase of it. So if we get the approval for a special permit to conduct his business in the site, we're not building a new building, we don't have a site plan review here. We're seeing if he can do what he needs to do to conduct his business on the site. If the answer is no, then we don't buy the property. If the answer is yes, then he has a decision to make whether or not he wants to take on the risk of owning a known site with contamination, and that's in the environmental report with the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the bank, and actually, the most
And
powerful.
they're going to give you
Yeah.
a whole lot more
Right.
hassle than we do
will.
about it.
Yeah, they're probably the
'Cause
most
it's a huge
powerful
financial
piece of
risk.
this.
But it's
The
one
bank.
step of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As we've been saying, this is
Okay.
one process, but we're not building a new building. We don't have an engineer here to have a site plan review. We came in with an exhibit to say this is what we're trying to do. And we've been upfront with the neighbors and not saying, oh, I'm gonna do this and paint some sort of, sugarcoat it. He came in and said, this is what I need to do my business.
Yeah.
And either we can do it and he can buy the property and work with the property, or he can't. And that's one phase of it. This is one phase of it. It's called zoning approvals. And this is zoning. We are doing zoning here. This is a special permit,
Yeah.
which is by the zoning. You have a
Okay.
contractor's
But I had
right.
to ask
If we
that
didn't have
question.
outdoor,
That's fair enough.
Close public input?
Okay, I want to see if there's anybody else that wishes to speak here. I see none. I will accept a motion to close the public
Motion to
hearing.
close the public hearing.
Second?
Motion second in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's 4. You're ready to close, okay. Let your engineers know, let the town engineers know that they're gonna have some stuff to look at. Okay,
All right.
now, the next thing up would be,
A motion to approve the special permit contingent upon
On all
All
the
of the stuff that
conditions
we've
that we
lined-
listed.
piled up
conditions
there.
that were mentioned by Evan, which you guys will work out, which is the environmental.
Yeah.
The hours, the berm, and the plan for the left side.
And
Yeah.
the restrictions on the
need a
left
motion to
side.
close the
Don't
public
tell that
hearing?
We already
We
did
already
that.
did that.
Okay.
okay,
Tim-
we have a
Tim-
motion?
A second?
Second? In favor?
Aye.
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 We got 5, 6. Okay. We've got it,
Shows
Get us-
the wells.
all the information you can on this to make it as easy as you can. It's a tough,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is that it?
Huh?
Sorry for getting you.
That, folks,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you. Welcome to
Thank
town.
Yeah, all right.
Do you want to table minutes?
Yeah.
How many minutes do we have?
Just one.
Motion to approve the minutes. Did everyone get to look at them?
Yeah.
Do you want to wait till next time?
An
Paul, we're
amendment to the
finishing-
minutes?
We're gonna finish the meeting.
Yeah.
Do you want to do them now, or?
Yeah, I think we got
Has
people.
everybody reviewed
I'm
them?
comfortable with them. The minutes. This is just for September 4th.
There was a note in those minutes that I was I left the Zoom call, and I never left the Zoom call.
It had me right, I missed the beginning, so.
All right.
Want to table them?
All right, let's table them.
I don't know, I sent the
Okay, let's table.
comment to Becky
Yeah.
to change
Just
it.
before you quickly adjourn, just remember, October 26th, you're starting at 6:30 with a work session.
Right.
The only regulatory item is 270 Billerica Road.
Only thing is 270. Okay, that will generate some interest.
Likely.
Likely, so
Good
we need to be
chance.
prepared.
We need to go to another place for the meeting, or?
Yeah,
No,
I
we're
don't
good
think we
here.
do for 270, but certainly that
90
the
days.
River Neck meeting's gonna have to be in a bigger spot.
Yeah, January.
All right, there's one more motion.
To adjourn.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
I guess we're adjourned. Good night, Anita.